Anyone who meets me quickly learns that I am really happy to let you know that I'm from North Carolina. I am proud of my home, and I love it unconditionally. And despite whatever problems it may have, it's the place where I learned how to be myself. And I've noticed that when I talk to folks about where I'm from, they get real comfortable. They want to talk to me about how they came up too. And this way that we formed our identity as we grew, it's this really important part of what makes us human, and it helps us to form instant connections. Now, this is a way that I would greet anyone I meet. I like for y'all to know who you're dealing with, but also this is a method that I've learned. I'm a doctoral candidate in history and ethnography of religions, specifically Tibetan Buddhism. And the study of ethnography has given me the tools and guidelines for meeting and getting to know people respectfully. And for the record, ethnography is the study of living peoples, the scientific description of different cultures and customs. And the skills that I have learned in this area have benefited me massively, both personally and professionally. So, with all that said, hi, my name is Marah Litchford. I'm from Cullowhee, North Carolina, and I'd like to talk to you about Tibet and how the study of Tibetan history has affected my life. Many students today are encouraged to focus on STEM: science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. And recently, in the past few years, they've added that A for arts. And of course, all of these are noble and necessary pursuits in any society. But the addition of that A kind of actually speaks to where the focus is not in the humanities today. We see that when people think of the humanities, they tend to think of just the arts and perhaps even just the fine arts, rather than those other disciplines that might better be termed the human sciences. And as a result, those disciplines have been cast as a less valuable pursuit, and even worse in America, less likely to make you rich. And as a result, enrollment in history and English programs is at an all-time low. And the study of religion and philosophy is consistently cast as the quintessential example of a wasted education. And this is a pretty hard pill to swallow for someone like me who has seen so much benefit and so much joy in the teaching of world religions. So, as we've mentioned, I study history and ethnography of religions. And when I tell people this, they usually assume that I must be studying to be a preacher. But anybody that knows me also knows that I am not nearly enlightened enough to be leading any religious services anytime soon. And this miscommunication kind of speaks to how expectations are so far from reality when it comes to the study of the humanities. I study the role of Buddhism in Tibetan political protest, and my work takes me to the intersections of religion and politics and looks for what grounds there might be for diplomacy. And I've had to ask myself some pretty serious questions about what it means to be nonviolent and when and how a person might justifiably defend their country. Since 2009, at least 159 Tibetans have committed acts of self-immolation. This is a ritual of self-sacrifice that is at once very political, but also deeply religious. And in trying to understand this act, my education has taken me across the United States, from Washington, D.C. to Seattle, and to Nepal and France and Canada and Dharamshala, India. And it's true that because of my work, I've been able to meet some powerful leaders. I even got to meet the Dalai Lama. But what I will take with me into the future and in my heart are not these powerful voices that the world has already heard. It will be the people that sat with me in quiet corners and shared with me their stories. They told me how they grew up, or in some cases, were still growing up, and who they loved, and what they feared, and where they were willing to place their faith. And it's these voices that I hope to take with me in my work in the United States government in the future. And it's true that my colleagues and I tend to kind of show up in places like that you might not expect. And yeah, my friends are awesome. They do the incredible work of cultural preservation and the interpreting and translating of ancient texts and scriptures. You know, all that stuff that keeps y'all's History Channel really interesting. But also, in my time at FSU, I've studied how religion colored the response to Ebola and how ethnography might be used to mitigate miscommunications in the future to improve our responses to any potential future pandemics. I've watched my coworkers use ethnography to study how bus schedules might be used to ease the problem of homelessness in Tallahassee. And I've seen incredible scholars like these go out into the world as representatives of our country and create relationships that brought home information that can benefit international relations at more levels than I know how to list for you right now. And yeah, in my own work, I've studied a lot about violence, and I've talked to people a lot about how they define their ideas of nonviolence. But I've also learned a lot about diplomatic aid that the United States was already sending out into the world and how it could be used more efficiently and perhaps in entirely different ways to benefit refugee communities. And that is a concrete financial benefit for the United States government and for the Tibetan government in exile. And it's also precisely the thing that people don't really expect from the study of religion. And when I was learning all of these things about diplomatic aid, I wasn't studying mathematics. I was sitting down with people and talking to them about the things that make us human. I sat down as a mother with other women, and I talked to them about the hardships that they faced and the need for better education for their children and the lack of funding for a much-needed domestic violence shelter. I learned that the positive stereotyping of Tibetan people was controlling not only the aid that they received, but how it was allowed to be spent. This view of Tibetan folks as a model minority, as more spiritual and yet somehow also more simple folks than the rest of us, is really doing them a lot more harm than good. Tibetan men and women regularly express to me that oftentimes the heaviest burden that they had to carry was this expectation to be strong. And I could take that information home and help people understand, help all of y'all understand how self-immolation could become an expression of all that pressure, particularly for Tibetans inside Tibet who feel that they have no other way to be heard. This is the work of a religion degree, to contribute to understanding about one of the most sensitive issues in Sino-American diplomacy today. The humanities can always surprise you like this. Our friends in STEM, they need us too. Doctors, armed with the knowledge of how religion affects people's medical decisions, can be more effective and more compassionate with their patients. And we have already seen that religion really heavily colors the way that people are thinking about emergent technologies, like AI and cloning and stem cell research. Scientists in these areas need to clearly understand public sensitivity so that they can make sure that the intention for the use of their work is clearly understood by regular folks. My own work has taken me to places that led me to better understand the systems of production of goods and how human exploitation continues to play a role in the production of those goods. And yes, also the economics of diplomatic aid and the role of protest in a free society. This is where the study of religion really matters. Because the training that is aimed at helping you to objectively view someone who might otherwise easily be cast as your enemy can only be of benefit. So it's not the case that we need more engineers and less philosophers. Rather, we need to do away with this idea that the two are mutually exclusive. This is a false dichotomy. The concept of the Renaissance person was one who was well-versed in all the disciplines, and this should be our goal. Why can't a coder also be a poet? And might not they already be in the execution of their work? Why shouldn't the builders of our robots have engaged in deep investigation into the complexity of human nature? And shouldn't our architects be studying aesthetics so that they can create buildings and cities that are ecologically sound and efficient, but also feel welcoming and take into account that innate need that we all have for connection with nature as part of our physical and mental health? I am the mother of 2 daughters. One is 11, and one is on the way. And it is my sincere wish that theirs is a future in which the study of what it means to be human is considered a necessary part of the building of civic and economic systems. It is a worthy and, yes, lucrative pursuit on its own. But not only did it allow a kid from Appalachia to travel the world and meet new people and see new things, it can be a sincerely important and beneficial element of any career in a civil society. So I would urge you all strongly to consider what role the humanities might play in your own career, whatever path that you might be on. And I would urge you strongly to please protect your history programs, participate in your history programs, learn other people's worldview, and maybe come join me in a world religions class sometime. There can only be power in studying what it is to be deeply human. And the humanities, history and literature and ethnography and philosophy, they accomplish precisely that. So, my name is Marah Litchford. I'm from Cullowhee, North Carolina. And I hope that y'all go home tonight and you think about your own home and what it means to you and how that undeniable interconnectivity of all humanity is the result of the fact that we all share our home. Thank you all so much for coming to my TED Talk.